Hello and welcome to our 7-8 minutes of weekly Torah talk. Our guest today is Rabbi Jeremy Kalmanofsky from Anshei Chesed in New York City. Hello, Rabbi. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be with you.
This week we read Nitzavim-Vayelech, and in these two parshas, we hear about fundamental principles of Judaism, the unity of Israel, future redemption, the practicality of Torah. The Torah says, "For the mitzvah which I command you this day is not beyond you, nor it is remote from you." We also hear about the freedom of choice. We also recount the events of the last day of Moshe's life. The leader transfers the leadership to Joshua, and concludes writing the Torah in a scroll which he entrusts to the Levites for safekeeping in the ark. Every 7 years during the festival of Sukkot, the Torah says the entire people of Israel should gather at the temple in Jerusalem, where the king should read to them from the Torah. The first pasuk of Nitzavim says, "Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem lifnei Adonai Elohechem, rashechem, shiftechem, ziknechem, veshotrechem, kol ish Yisrael." You are all standing this day before the Lord your God, the leaders of your tribes, your elders and your officers, every man of Israel. So, Rabbi, we are nearing the conclusion of the Torah, and there is this sense and feeling of an end, right?
Absolutely. It's the covenant renewal ceremony. Moshe has in Devarim has said before, we have to renew this covenant that we made at Sinai, and here we are at the end of his life renewing it. And he's as you said, he's at the very end of his life. And he says this covenant is multi-generational with those who are here and those who are not here. And with that statement, it seems to look both forward and backward. Those who are not here, I would say the simple semantic meaning must mean the generations yet to come. But it also seems to hearken back to the ancestors who are no longer alive. There's an almost mystical national unity of Am Yisrael that is present in this covenant that he makes now. And he says it in such an amazing, there are few parshiot in the Torah where the poetry is as powerful and present as in Nitzavim. The whole people, the bosses and the water drawers, the people who exert leadership, and chotev eitzecha v'shoev meimecha, the people who have to do the hard and not very impressive work, but are nonetheless integral to the whole people.
And remembering the harsh words we heard in last week's Parsha, maybe these words of consolation, and also the calming tone of, well, you have 5 books of the Torah in front of you, but don't be afraid. These are things that you can deal with. These are not too difficult to practice. Maybe that's a consolation at the end of the road.
Well, after the tochicha from last week, you're right. You need something a little sweet after the harshness of that. If you succeed, it said last week, you'll be blessed in the city and blessed in the field, and you get 8 or so verses of that. And if you fail, kaboom, it's terrible. All of these terrible curses will have it upon you. But then Moshe says today, or in this week's parsha, you got this. I believe in you. Not that I think you will fail. Although, admittedly, very often the book of Devarim sounds like tochecha, but what he says in today's parsha, or this week's parsha, is you got this. It's not beyond you. You don't have to go up to heaven. You don't have to cross the sea. And by the way, it's always seemed to me that Moshe is saying something to the people about the end of his own leadership, because the 2 greatest things, perhaps, that Moshe did as his leader was to, 1, lead them across the sea, and 2, go up in the boundary, go up to heaven, so to speak, in the boundary of heaven and earth to get the Torah. And he says, by the way, you don't need that anymore. You don't need me anymore. You don't have to go to heaven. You don't have to cross the ocean. You have to be human. But you can do this. It's very close to you. It's in your heart. It's in your mouth. You can. And the people maybe need a little of that vote of confidence.
And not going to heaven means that we can remain as human beings. And one of the things that the Torah tells us is that we have to make it a Torah of a living human being. We don't have to strive for beyond our regular being.
100% true. This is a very human religion. The Gemara at one point, when discussing like incredibly precise purity rules about bodily emissions, says Lo nitna Torah malachei hasharet. Okay, the Torah isn't given to angels who can have superhuman, standards. It's human beings, human bodies, and God makes the covenant not with angels, but with human beings who have human bodies, who are mortal, who succeed in some ways and fail in other ways. And that's what makes Judaism, such a wonderful human religion. There's a great little Hasidic twist. There's a verse in Shmot that says, Anshe Kodesh Tihyunli, you shall be holy people to me, right. To which the Rebbe of Kotsk said, you have to be humanly, Anshe Kodesh means to be humanly holy. You have to be holy in a human way. And I think the Torah absolutely is oriented to just that message. You don't have to be an angel, but you have to be a human being.
Is it a lower degree of holiness to be a holy human being and not a holy angel, or to strive beyond the being human?
Well, I would say that the sweep of Jewish thought is the opposite, that human beings are holier than angels, because angels are perfect, but they also have no struggles. They have no temptations. Angels are kind of heavenly robots, and human beings are conflicted, and human beings have struggles, and we both succeed and fail. And so the thought of bringing holiness and sanctity to our humanness is actually, in my humble opinion, a higher calling, and it's especially exemplified in our parsha by what's to me one of the absolute best and most powerful verses about choosing life.
Choosing life.
It says, I place before you, good and evil, death and life, uvacharta b'chayim, and you have to choose life. And there's so much richness in that mitzvah, that overarching mitzvah, the poetic power of choose life, uvacharta b'chayim, is to say that, by the way, you human beings, in a way that is not true about angels, you have to choose. You have the free will and the ability to go in good ways and bad ways. You have the free will and the capability to be your best self and your less than good self, so you have to choose life. And that to me is one of, in the Torah is full of both big, gigantic things and small and precise things, and this is one of those great mottos of Judaism, that we are a people who love life and choose life.
And one of the things in that phrase, choosing life, is also, there is this great irony of it being a commandment. On the one hand, you need to choose life, and on the other hand, an expression of hope. I hope that you will choose life. And also it reminds us that we have the power to choose, because we have freedom of choice. So it's not even clear if this is something we are told to do or God hopes that we will do.
It's like, what's that word? Like if a coach says to the team, I'm rooting you on, please, come on, choose life, you can do this. There's really, I think, a great depth to this mitzvah, because on the one hand, first of all, we have a life drive. Here in New York, you walk down the street in New York, and you see sometimes, probably in every city, but certainly true in New York, enormous human misery. People like severe drug addicts and enormous poverty, and you sometimes wonder why they don't just go jump in the river. What gives them the power to hang on and keep wanting to live? But you have a drive to live. But the reality is, lots of people in our life, lots of people in the world, sometimes do fail to choose life, and I'm thinking of a couple of passages in the Torah, one which we'll read in a week or so, or week and a half, 2 weeks on Yom Kippur. Jonah is very, very disappointed with the world, and he says, Tov moti mech. Death is better than life. And so Jonah, stands at that crossroads, and for that moment chooses death. And that is the exact opposite of what the Torah actually wants us to do. Life is hard, and you sometimes will want to give up, but you have to choose life, affirmatively assert that life is good, life is worth living, even when it's hard.
Rabbi, with this optimistic message, thank you so much and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom to you. Thank you for having me.